So what were, since we were just talking about, what were some of the cultural differences, with the modern technological developments that were commonly used before we had our smartphones? And
We were just discussing the library over here, which was the original high school. And as a kid, I was at the library probably 3-4 nights a week. But of course, I only lived about 3.5 blocks down the road from it. And the teachers would assign you extra, you could earn all the extra credit you want. So you would do a 1-page report on a president or a country or something. And you'd run down there and grab the encyclopedia. And you would do something on Nicaragua or Costa Rica or British Honduras and French Guyana, and all these places no longer exist. And you live down there, then of course you did that in 10 minutes, but then you would spend the next hour going through, I've never seen an aardvark before, I've never seen this, I'm going to this country someday, who is this king? And it just kept you interested. And I loved the library. And as we're here in the old courthouse, and I was telling you, I've been down here doing a project reading old newspapers. And it's kind of a pastime for me, because as I told Sarah, the director here, now when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I would sneak up those old squeaky steps, and the 3rd floor was archive research. And all the papers were up on racks. And I would go to the far end of the building, I would grab a paper I wanted, then I would get right behind the row, so when the lady walked back and forth, she couldn't see me. You had to be as quiet as a church mouse so you didn't get caught. But I spent a lot of time up there just reading old newspapers and wishing I could buy one of those old antique cars for $100 like they sold back in the day.
so why would you have to hide to read the newspapers?
Because I was, number one, I was only 9 or 10 years old. I wasn't even supposed to be up on the 2nd floor where the adult books were, and you could not go to the 3rd floor research unless you had a research project and one of the ladies was with you, and usually she would go get you the source material. You just couldn't randomly go, that looks interesting, I need to read this.
So the system was very different at the time.
Oh yes.
Than modern
the
libraries.
basement was for kids. It was a little small room, had all kinds of kid books, highlights. You had all your Dr. Seuss and all that kind of stuff, which for me was very boring. My parents let me read almost anything at an early age. So we had Reader's Digest at home and novels that I probably shouldn't have been reading. And I blew through the children's library by the time I was 9 years old. And I would sneak up the little side steps there to get to what would be the 2nd floor or main floor, and start going through the adult books. I was really into World War II history because of my dad and all my uncles. The house I lived in, within a 2-block area, I had 4 sets of aunts and uncles and cousins. And so I come from a large family. We always joke until I went to kindergarten. I never met a kid that wasn't a cousin. And so I would sneak up and read all the World War II books, and then the lady would catch me and throw me out. And, fortunately, my name is Thomas William Gaffrey, and I'm the 3rd. And I was a large kid. My dad goes, I can fix that. So he just gave me his library card. And I had an adult library card, and I could check those books out and take them home. And that was fun for me. Get to read anything I wanted now.
So your parents wouldn't go to the library with you to check out the books for you?
No. Go do it yourself. Merced was a little town back in those days. I would ride my bicycle down to the library with my dog, and then I would make my dog sit there and watch my bike until I was in there.
Like Little House on the Prairie?
Not quite that, but not as bad. I rode everywhere around Merced, and my dog was always with me, and you knew everybody, and if you got hot and thirsty, you just went on somebody's front lawn and grabbed the hose and turned it on and got a drink of water. Nobody got upset or anything like that. And you zipped all around.
And so we're talking about the library, and I know we mentioned it before. You said the library closed down when they built a new one?
Yes.
That was in the 70s?
I would have to say it was in the 70s. And that's the one, the new one is the one on the other west side of the courthouse museum here, and the original as I know it, Library High School is on the east side.
Mhm. Do you know what has been done with that building since the move?
Yes, I believe it's owned by the Historical Society. Vince Griffith was the architect, restored the court, consulting architect restoring this courthouse. He's also was involved, worked for Merced County as one of the head architects over there. And I worked at the county with him. And what they have done, they re-roofed it so it wouldn't leak. And they have sealed all the windows with plywood and sealant. And they have an architectural term, restored in place without restoring the building, but it's not deteriorating. I don't think they know what they're going to do at this point, but it's not like falling down. So it's got a new roof, it's boarded up, it's, not flooded or corroded or anything. So it's just sitting over there right now.
But on the inside, I heard it's really in bad shape on the inside.
I haven't been over in years or heard anything about it in years. At one time, they wanted to put low density offices in there, like accountants or lawyers that would only have a couple of customers an hour, and try to rent it out to generate revenue. And I guess that got set aside. So at the moment, I really don't know where it is. I just know 10 years ago when I talked to Vince and they put the roof on it, at that point they weren't losing it at that point. Maybe since then things have changed.
And it's a historical building.
I believe so.
Registered in a National Registry of Historic Places.
I would assume it is.
Yeah. So, okay. One of the places, a couple of places on Main Street, we have like Merced Theater and Merced Playhouse, I believe.
Theater I'm familiar with. The Playhouse, I think that's the old Montgomery Ward building or something.
Well, I mean, they're like about a block apart from each other.
Correct. But
Give or take.
I'm thinking, kind of jog back, I remember that. I think it was Montgomery Ward's building. And then when the Merced Mall came in the 70s, and then they went across the street and built the new Montgomery Wards, and that place was vacated. So I would imagine that Playhouse come in sometime in the mid 70s or 80s.
Oh, that recently?
Yeah, but the old Merced Theater, it's been there since like 1930.
But I guess that maybe I used the wrong term then. Merced Theater is what I was referring
That's
to.
the one, the big tall tower with Merced up on top of it. You can see
Okay.
it from the freeway.
Right. Okay, and that's partially like a movie theater now, isn't it?
Well, originally it was a movie theater.
Oh, I thought it was originally like a playhouse, we have actors on stage kind of playhouse, like a theater.
It was the first. There were several theaters in Merced back in the old days when I reading the paper, but that was a chain theater. It was the first one designed to be a theater. It had sound system speakers because a lot of people had theaters, and then they came out with sound, and it was like, well, now what do we do? And it was air conditioned. You had an air conditioned building in Merced.
Was that the first air conditioned building?
I don't know if it's the very first, but it's the very first built from the ground up and for that purpose. So you could go in there, and even when I was a kid, it was like, let's go to the theater someplace cool. And we meant temperature-wise, not like hangout-wise.
Right.
And but it did, I don't know if you've been down there since it's been restored. It's pretty close to original. But of course, they've got a digital projection system and stuff in the back where the loggias were. And the stage area that you're referring to has been cut back. Mm-hmm. And there's actor rooms, blue rooms underneath. But it used to come out further, and it actually had an orchestra pit also. Mm-hmm. And so they did, fifth grade, we all got to go down in the school buses and see Madame Butterfly and things like that. So they did do plays and stuff. Early days when the schools were smaller, graduation was held down there. I remember it mostly as just go see the movies.
Okay.
And it was really a neat place.
And you said that was in the 1930s?
It was built in the 30s, yeah. I think it opened like Halloween of 1930 or something like that.
And is the outside pretty much the same as it was before?
Close enough. You would really have to have a photo from us and have it dated and compare it.
But it's pretty similar.
The only thing they really did, the box office used to be out front. Theaters always would have a ticket office out front. And that way you could go, there'd be a girl in there at 11 o'clock in the morning. You could buy matinee tickets or evening tickets at that time of day. That way you knew you had seating. Mm-hmm. And they tore that down years ago.
So it was a separate section outside
It was
of
a
it?
little square box, maybe 10 foot by 10 foot. And it was just a cashier with tickets.
So it wasn't directly connected to the actual
No,
building?
it was right
just
out there
separate.
before you went around it, and then about another 10 feet, then you had the doors to walk in the theater.
Okay.
And then somewhere 70s, United Artists bought it and turned it into a fourplex. Took that beautiful theater, just put a wall down this way, a wall up here, fortunately they did a really terrible job. They did not remove anything. They just took all the existing stuff and put false work. So when the Historical Society got it back, they were able to take it down and all the original stuff was there.
Wow, that's impressive.
That was very impressive.
And the original stuff did not get damaged?
The only problem during the restoration they had a couple chunks of the dome ceiling come down, and it turned out it was asbestos. So that took another year and another $1 million to remedy that.
Wow.
But it was the place to go when I was a kid, and it's pretty nice right now.
Yeah, I've been there. It is a really neat architecture.
Yeah.
But the divides were removed, basically.
Correct. Yeah, they had 2 mini theaters upstairs in the balcony area, and then below where you walk in, they had just put a wall down the center and had two theaters there. Turned it into a fourplex. That was the up and coming thing back then.
Well, sort of like the modern theaters that you can go see. You pick which movie you want to go see.
Correct. They'd be showing 4 different movies and stuff. And I see that big dome ceiling. They had when you would walk in, it would be daylight, and the clouds would be going across that dome. And I remember being a little kid and being there, and you get excited. And they would start with, early on they'd have a newsreel, but by the time I really got into it, it would be 2 cartoons and 2 movies. So when the cartoons started, it would start getting a little darker. By the end of the second cartoon, it would be dark, and then you'd see some coming attractions, and when the movie started, it'd be jet black in there. But if you weren't paying attention, you didn't realize it was all happening.